While menstruation beginning signifies a big change in a young woman's body and a pivotal opportunity to affect her lifelong health, 7 times 3 or 21 and 7 times 4 or 28 are important benchmarks in our reproductive life as well. In this week's episode, we will look at what is so special about 21 and 28 for women as they move through their 7-year cycles in their adult lives.
Hi, I'm Adrienne Irizarry. I'm an Eastern medicine practitioner who is passionate about women's health and helping women live their best lives. My goal is to put you in the driver's seat of your menstrual health, offering period solutions for a symptom-free life. Statements made in this program are for educational purposes only and not intended as a substitution for medical consultation or advice. We do not claim to diagnose, treat, or cure any diseases. This podcast is inclusive and welcomes all gender identities. The focus of the program is on biological function, and we will use the term women throughout, but it is referencing physiological and social challenges for biology, not identity. Come as you are, I am happy you're here and welcome all performances of identity. I hope you find something helpful in this show.
Welcome back to another episode of the Reproductive Rebel podcast. We are taking a look through an Eastern medicine lens at menstruation and what healthy menstruation should look like. So if you are just joining us, I would highly recommend checking out season 2, episodes 3 through 7, that talks about the biomechanics behind the cycle. So you know about what each of the phases are doing, what they're trying to accomplish, how you should feel during those phases. And last week's episode, where we talked about a TCM lens in terms of how we are moving through the world and what we should expect in each phase of our life. So we're adding layers. First, we talked about the actual biological aspects of things. And now we're taking a look at how Eastern medicine looks at all of these biomechanical pieces and how they ought to work and how they ought to work together. So what is a standard healthy cycle? Okay, so in a previous episode, we talked about the fact that healthy cycles should start between ages 12 and 14, 16 on the outer end, but that when they arrive, they should be relatively symptom free. And that is one of the golden opportunities in our life to get our bodies into a healthy place to start our reproductive years. So now we're taking a look at those bleeding years. We are now in the menstrual years. So what does a standard healthy cycle look like? So from an Eastern perspective, you should be bleeding for 4 to 6 days only. Fresh red blood only. No clots, no cramps, no emotional symptoms, no bloating, no headaches. These arrive every 28 to 30 days. It starts light to medium, gets a little heavier in the middle, comes down day 3, and cruises to the finish line between day 4 and day 6. If you do not have all of the facets of what I just described, then your body is showing signs of imbalance. And that is not to shame anyone, make anyone feel like they are less than or lacking. It is to highlight that in our culture, we have a misconception that certain types of period imbalances are normal. And we normalize certain symptoms, things like PMS or cramps or clots or bloating. We normalize these things as being just another part of being a menstruating body, but it's not true. These are all your body's way of waving a flag and saying, hey, there's something in here that needs a little more love and support. Can you help me out? So I'm going to reiterate the criteria again. Okay, a standard healthy cycle should arrive every 28 to 30 days. It should be fresh red blood only, no clots, no cramps, no emotional roller coasters, no bloating, no headaches. Fresh red blood only. it should last 4 to 6 days. That's it. And it arrives every 28 to 30 days because our bodies are very in sync with nature, particularly the lunar cycle. And the lunar month is 29 and a half days. So if your period starts on day 28, 29, or 30, you are totally in a normal range. If you're starting early in the day on day 31, I would also consider that normal range because that means you've had 30 full days before the bleed arrived. If your cycle is shorter than 28 days, it's telling a story about what's going on inside of your body. If your cycle is longer than 30 days, it's telling a story about what's going on inside your body. Now, talking about what we talked about last week, looking at our cycle starting as young women, it is not uncommon for there to be some variability in cycle length in the beginning because the body is practicing this communication process. And the HPO axis is like really starting to figure out like how we're going to be a bleeding body and how to, complete that communication loop every single month. But once you're outside of that practice phase, those first 5 years that you are in a menstruating world, you are now looking at this is presenting as a sign of imbalance. Now, irregularity doesn't have to be the case for young women. There's a lot that I can do to help regulate and minimize symptoms and all of those kinds of things, because even though the cycle length will vary with girls in their first 5 years after starting to menstruate, it still does not mean that cramps and emotional symptoms and clots and all of those types of things are normal. What it means is that their bleed length could vary a little bit. And when the period arrives can vary a little bit because you have to remember ovulation is the paramount event. So if ovulation doesn't happen, the body has to catch up and go, oh, hold on, I didn't ovulate. This is why the period didn't come. Right. And so it has to go, okay, well, we need to scrap this and try to start again because we have to get this communication loop happening effectively. So that practice process, once you were out of it in that first 5-year time frame, now you're looking at true body imbalances. Okay, so whether that is 25 or 45, if your cycle isn't happening in this way, it means there's something that isn't working in a harmonious way in your system. And I just want to really point out the fact that you are not alone. You are not alone. So I don't want me pointing this out to make you feel called out in any way. Because I generally, when I introduce to people what it is that I do, I will tell them that, 99.99% of the population has some sort of an imbalance because I'm leaving the door open for that one unicorn to walk through my door. Okay. So, and I say that jokingly when I'm introducing this topic to people, but I mean it in a very serious way because, sure, is there the possibility that there is somebody out there that without steaming, without herbs, just carrying on their normal life, without acupuncture, nothing, no supports whatsoever, their body just has this in lockstep? Yeah, sure. I'm sure there's probably at least one person out there in the world that without some other form of proactive support, their body is able to maintain this on its own. Very likely that person is not living in a Western industrial environment. And the reason for that is stress is the number one thing that messes with our cycle, folks. Stress really is a killer in a lot of ways. It kills our libido. It kills our motivation. It kills the extra energy in our system. It throws us in for a loop in terms of menstrual imbalances. It makes it so that we have struggles with fertility. Stress is a huge problem. And our world is moving faster than it's ever moved before. Our nervous systems aren't designed to keep up with it. Our nervous systems are designed to have rest and punctuation between stressful moments and non-stressful moments. And our culture, our cultural lifestyle does not allow for that to happen without mindful intention. It just doesn't. Probably the closest that I've seen in my lifetime to something like that was when we were all locked down. Because for a lot of people, that forced a slower pace to life. Not everybody. There were some people who were still trying to figure out how they were going to, deal with work and Zoom homeschool and all of these other craziness things. And that caused a lot of stress for some people. But for others, and I saw this really manifest itself in my practice, is for the people that life really slowed down in a way that they were like, wow, now what am I going to do with myself? I didn't realize how much life was demanding of me until life shut down. They saw huge changes with their cycles when they didn't have to rush out the door for work every morning, or they didn't have to spend 2 hours in traffic just trying to get to an office, or things like that, right? Let alone the demands once they got to work. So, stress is a huge reason why women need to take proactive steps to supporting and maintaining the health of their menstrual cycle. Our lifestyle is also a huge contributor. Our lifestyle is not only stressful, but what we're trying to do to feed ourselves when we are so busy and stressed and pulled in so many directions. The quality of foods that we eat goes down. The amount of hours that we're spending sleeping goes down. Our ability to commit to movement practices goes down, changes, diminishes. So there's so many aspects to our lifestyle, diet, environment, just all of these things that really point to a lack of cyclical living and being in tune with nature, the seasonal changes, the light changes, and nature really do affect the way that our cycle shows up. So, don't have all of this feel like, well, great, I'm living in Western society and there's no way that I'm going to be able to fix my period. That's not true. What I'm saying is that there are a lot of things that, unless we turn a mindful eye towards addressing them, we are not going to be able to really meaningfully address some of our cycle related problems. And you know what? A lot of it is just learning a new way of moving through the world. It doesn't actually translate to a lot of extra effort. It's just restructuring what we're already doing or reframing how we're looking at what we're doing. For example, I schedule my work with my cycle. So I'm sitting here recording this podcast right now, and I am talking to you on a day when I am articulate. I am not going to try to record this podcast when I am on my period because I cannot words and stuff. I have a hard time clearly articulating myself and communicating all of the dynamic thoughts that are in my head when I am premenstrual. And you're the same way. And that is totally normal because we have normal changes in our energy that make us more extroverted and more articulate and more vibrant during certain parts of the month. And we have certain aspects of the month where we're more introverted, and solo tasks where we don't have to engage with other people are going to be more our strength and in our wheelhouse. We're going to be far more productive if we learn to work in this manner. So I designed Not Your Mama's Menstrual Course to teach you exactly about this very thing. Part of it is managing stress. Some of it is foods to support healthy menstruation and lifestyle practices, but some of it is just learning how to work in alignment with the gifts our cycle gives us every month. There are parts of the month where if you have writing tasks, even if writing isn't your thing, your brain is going to be more hardwired for that type of activity during that time. There's going to be parts of the month where if you have a big presentation you have to give at work, try to get it scheduled during a certain time in your month because you're going to be the most charismatic and the most vibrant, and you're literally going to radiate your light And everyone in that room is going to just be simply drawn to you. So maximize what you're able to do every month because our culture really kind of condemns. And, I talked about this and, don't be ashamed of being cyclical, right? Our cultural container hasn't learned to embrace the biochemical differences between men and women and that women can do just as much as men. They just do it differently. And that different isn't a weakness and it isn't bad. So I can do all the same things that a man can do. I actually think I can do more things than some men can do. And I say that because I have learned to harness this superpower that my body gives me, which is different tasks that my body is wired for all month long. Does it mean that I can do it on the drop of a hat right now today? Maybe not. Because right now I'm articulate, but my mind isn't in a writing space. But give me a week or two, my mind will be more in a writing space and I'll be able to just knock that task completely out of the park. So when we learn to work with the gifts that our cycle gives us, and we're not trying to over demand our resources in any given part of our cycle. So we're not trying to hit personal records with deadlifting on day 3 of our cycle because girl, you're simply not going to be able to lift 300 pounds on day 3 of your cycle because you should still be bleeding at that point. And then we're not over tapping our system. We're moving in alignment with the gifts our cycle gives us, the strengths our cycle gives us. Let me tell you, you want to lift that 300 pounds, do it around ovulation. You are going to knock that record out of the park and you're going to feel great doing it. And you're probably going to feel like, hey, I think I could put some more weight on here because your body's built for that task during that time frame. And we have this routine kind of mentality in our culture that we always have to, work really hard and we have to maximize things and we have to just go, 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 go. Well, when I look at weightlifting forums and I see girls saying, hey, cheer me on, like I'm having a hard time getting motivated today. I'm always the one that chimes in. And I know I've said this before, but I'm the one that chimes in and goes, so what day of your cycle are you on? And inevitably, they are on their period. Your body's already doing a big task during your period. It's doing a big task. You are shedding that unused endometrial lining. You are losing blood. Your body is doing a big task. And if you overtax it, you're going to start interrupting that hormone communication in your system. And when that starts to happen, we start seeing these kinds of period problems creep in. We see cramps. We see PMS and irritability. I know the PMS and irritability doesn't happen until later in the month, but sometimes people are starting to see PMS and irritability symptoms around ovulation. That means that deficit is deeper. So there are ways to harness the gifts of your cycle, still do all of the same things you want to do and embrace life the way that you want to embrace it, but you're actually going to be able to embrace it with far more gusto because you're doing it in an aligned cyclical way. So check out the Tao of Women Institute. Look at Not Your Mama's Menstrual Course. Start with body basics so that if you didn't listen to episodes 3 through 7, or you are looking for a deeper dive than episode 3 through 7, you're going to get it in body basics. It's 30 minutes. It's a nice, quick, concise overview, but then everything is the sky's the limit from there. You're going to get more out of Not Your Mama's Menstrual Course. If fertility is your goal, empowered fertility needs to come after Not Your Mama's Menstrual Course because you need to understand why a healthy cycle is so important for a healthy baby. If you are between 35 and 49, your menstruation's probably starting to get a little colorful. It's because you've been menstruating for many years now, and you've had a whole bunch of life demands that have challenged the resources in your system, And if you haven't learned how to actively manage your chi, and we're going to talk about this more succinctly in a couple of episodes coming up here, but if you haven't learned how to manage your energy in a meaningful way, you are going to have lots of period problems in your late 30s, early 40s. And if I had a dime for every time somebody says, I think I'm going through early menopause, the answer is no, no, you're not. Are there people that go through it early? Yes. But the vast majority of people do not. They are experiencing cycle imbalances because you're older, you're spending your chi in more places, you're not replenishing your body in certain ways. So if you are in that 35 and older category, please, please, please go look at coming into second spring, that perimenopause, menopause replay that I have out in the Dial Women Institute. It is going to open your mind in so many ways because I have had this huge influx of clients in my practice recently that are in that 38 to 41 age group because they're seeing shortening cycles. They're seeing clots that they never had before. They're seeing pain that they never had before. Their period is heavier than it's ever been before. They're starting to experience night sweats. So they think this has to be menopause, but it's not. In a lot of cases, it's not. Now, again, as I make some of these statements, they're kind of general overarching themes, right? This is not saying that in your particular case, it may not be true or there might not be a family history that supports it. But for the vast majority of people, that isn't the case. They start getting these symptoms because of imbalances that are showing up in their system. So by the time they actually get through menopause, they feel like they've been going through it for years, but they haven't been. Menopause, on average, happens between 48 and 52 years old, with the average age of 51. So if you are 38 and 39 and you are already kicking legs out of the covers and you are waking between 1 and 3 in the morning and you feel hot, go check out my perimenopause course, please, because it's going to give you really meaningful information about what is going on in your system, how you can support it, why it's happening, and it will make it feel like, one, you're not crazy because you're not, I promise you. And two, that there are things that you can start doing today to make those symptoms a little less controlling of your quality of life. So, menstruation is a really big topic and it spans a big distance in ages because once you get out of those practicing years, things should click along pretty easily at 28 to 30 days and relatively symptom free because your body is young and you don't have many, many years of menstruation. But stress will influence that equation. It doesn't matter what age you're at. And the older you get, the more sensitive to stress you become. If you're not getting the right kinds of foods and enough sleep and things like this, when we're younger, we think we're superheroes and we can burn the candle at both ends, whether it is for academic study or we're going to a party or out with friends or whatever, and 4 hours of sleep and we can bounce our way into work the next day. And we're a little tired, but it's not making it so that we're completely impaired to work. And then all of a sudden we hit like our mid-30s and our body goes, hey, you've been burning that candle a little too hard. Here's how it's showing up. So taking care of menstruation now and being proactive about managing your stress, mindful movement, your lifestyle, your diet, all of those kinds of things, working in harmony with your cycle. As you hit each of these 7-year transitions that we discussed 2 episodes ago, as you're hitting each of those 7-year transitions, you're going to cruise through them. They're not going to be so abrupt and rude as they would be if you didn't properly support your body. So the moral of the story is the more you know about your body, what it's doing, how to work with it, and what kinds of support it needs when, you would put yourself into the driver's seat of your bus. Your period symptoms, PMS, feeling like a fire breathing dragon, cramps that make it so you miss work, none of that shit has to be your reality. None of it. None of it has to be your reality. You can completely have a symptom free cycle that gently comes, does its thing, leaves, and you walk out of that period feeling strong, not fatigued, clear headed, and ready to kick ass for the rest of your month. I know that this is possible. I see this in my clients every single day. I see this in my own life. Endometriosis used to run my life. My cycles were irregular for a long time. Then stress started creeping in, and my cycles got shorter and shorter and shorter. And at one point, I was rocking an 18 to 21 day cycle. I would bleed for 2 weeks, I'd be off for a week, and that crap would start again. That is the sign of a super unhealthy body. The body is just screaming for resources and support. And I had no idea what to give her at the time. I was working a corporate job. I was working in a man's world corporate job where the demands of the job absolutely did not align with the fact that I was a bleeding body. And it didn't matter how hard I worked. It was never hard enough. The harder I worked, the sicker I got. The sicker I got, the more it started to jeopardize my job performance. Ladies, this is the world we work in. This is the world we live in. It doesn't have to be like this. It really doesn't. You deserve to thrive and flourish. And you know what? You would totally kick ass at those corporate positions if your body didn't feel like garbage all the time. If you didn't wake up feeling groggy and have brain fog and have to caffeinate yourself to get through the day. People who are grabbing a coffee at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, your body's asking for help. Send help. It doesn't have to be like that. You can feel strong and vital and clear-headed and proactive and multitask like the boss woman you are. Your menstrual period, your menstrual cycle, menstruation is an aspect of your menstrual cycle. Your period is not the whole month, although it's usually the most disruptive event. Secondly, being ovulation for people who have ovulation symptoms. But it's not the whole picture. It is one aspect of your entire month, and how you care for yourself every single day of your month will actually dictate the week leading up to when everybody is complaining about PMS symptoms and cramps and bloating and lethargy and all of those things. Those things start to go away when you take care of business the rest of the month. So then when the period shows up, the period just kind of gently surprises you. I had a client that I talked to recently who had just started her journey working with me. And she was like, yep, I had no indication that it was coming whatsoever. And then I got to work and there it was. Now, I'm not looking to shock and awe anyone, but that's how it should appear. It should literally just appear. No sleep disturbances, no symptoms, nothing before it begins. It should just quietly arrive, do its thing, and disappear again. And you shouldn't be having to put down Chuck's pads on the couch and have pads and period panties over pads and all of that kind of stuff because you're going to have an accident. None of that is normal. Your body is tired and it's asking for help. Okay, so I cannot stress enough. A standard healthy cycle is 28 to 30 days in length. You bleed for 4 to 6 days. 4 to 5 is the average. Fresh red blood only. No, the brown before and the brown after does not count. Red blood only, no clots, no cramps, no emotional symptoms, no bloating, no funny business. Nothing. None of that is normal. It should just quietly arrive, do its thing, and disappear. And I keep reiterating this because when I was first told what a standard healthy cycle looked like, I laughed because it sounded like a unicorn. And I'm like, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. I was the biggest skeptic out there. So for anybody who's listening to this and shaking their head and going, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it, that's fair. I totally was you at one point in my life. And this is actually why I feel so passionate about this now, because taking control of my cycle and eliminating symptoms in my cycle gave me my life back, gave me my vitality back, helped me to start this practice, work in a field of work that I love and that I feel like I'm giving back to the world. Like, I reclaimed my life by reclaiming my health. And your period is the fifth vital sign. Lisa Hendrickson Jack has this fabulous book called The Fifth Vital Sign. I would highly recommend checking it out if you've never read it. She does an absolutely fan-freaking-tastic job with that book. I love that book. She has a pod called Fertility Friday. She's a fertility awareness educator. I'm not affiliated with her. I just love her work. And in this book, she talks about how your period is the fifth vital sign. And it's so true. It's so true. Your period will tell you, did I burn the candle too hard at both ends this month? Am I too stressed? Did I eat enough? Did I sleep enough? Like, I know when I am too stressed and I haven't managed my stress level and my movement well enough because my period will start on day 26, like clockwork. It will start on day 26. And then I know, okay, Adrienne, we need to be more intentional with how we're managing our output this month. I absolutely am predispositioned to being a workaholic because I grew up in a culture where you work hard and you're defined by working hard. Can you tell I'm French Canadian? And that kind of work ethic is something I'm not only really proud of, but also really does cause a lot of health problems. And I've had to really do a lot of work at a personal level to be okay with being idle and with the fact that there are certain points in the month where I can go hard. And those are the times I will book more people in my schedule. I will do more teaching opportunities anywhere where I have to be verbal, articulate, and the best version of myself. I will pack it into that time frame. And then as I get closer to my period, I allow myself to have more breaks in my schedule and to thin things out a little bit so that I'm not pushing too hard. And ever since I started working that way, my health has been completely different. I haven't had to work as hard to manage my celiac. My fertility's been in a different place. My immune system's been in a different place. Like, folks, this has lasting impact on your body. It really does. So if your period is healthy, it means the rest of your system is healthy because one of the first places you're going to see that energy leak is showing up in your cycle. So if you're overextended and you're tapped out and you're tired, the first place it's going to show up is in your period. And then it's going to start showing up in other ways from there. But, the health of your period, man, it tells you so much about what's going on inside your body. It's telling you so much about how you're managing your life. So, body basics, not your mama's menstrual course. Every woman should take these two things. And then from there, find things that speak to the place that you are in your life. If that is on the doorstep of 35 or you're between 35 and 49, coming into second spring is where you need to go next in the Tao of Women Institute. If you are thinking about getting pregnant, you and your partner should do empowered fertility. So take the time, invest in yourself. Your health is wealth. And I know that sounds really corny, but it is so true. Invest in yourself, learn this information. It will literally change your life. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Reproductive Rebel podcast. This is a topic you can tell I'm really passionate about. So join us in the Reproductive Rebel podcast listeners group on Facebook. It's free. Talk with other people who are listening and loving these episodes. And please share this episode with anyone that you think it will speak to, family members, friends who might be having issues with their cycle. Share this information. Every one of us deserves to reclaim our health, and this is where we begin.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of Reproductive Rebel. Reproductive Rebel is recorded by certified peri-steam hydrotherapist, herbalist, sound healer, and Chinese nutritional therapist Adrienne Irizarry of Moon Essence LLC. If you are interested in setting up an appointment with Adrienne for one-on-one support, ordering from our store, or checking out our course offerings, visit our website at moonessence.life. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter to get insider information on upcoming events and offerings. Join the conversation. Like us and follow Moon Essence Me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn. Your voices make this program possible. Thank you all for your continued support.